What sometimes happens is you feel like you have a lot invested in something. You get invested in people, in the time you put into something, or in the way you care about something. And even though as you give your attention to it, it's keeping you from the receptive mode because your inner being is not looking at that. You are justifying your continuing attention to it. I'm going to give you sort of a slight example of this, and you will enjoy the fun of this. So Esther has a room in a new house that faces west, and it's also the room that has the big television in it, so it needs some curtains. And the curtains that have been there were terrible to look at. Esther shuddered a little every time she saw them. And so she's been in the process for quite some while with this company to remove them and put some automated ones in, which was kind of a big thing because electricity had to be brought to them and big rods and so forth. It was not a small job, but this company said that they could do it. Well, the company turned out to be less than reliable, and it was hard not to observe that. But now, since she had signed a contract and since she had committed resources to it, it never seemed like the right thing to pull away. Now, we want you to hold those thoughts. The path of least resistance seemed to go with something that didn't feel good. Really? Because the training of life experience, the path of least resistance seemed to just follow it out. We've gone this far, let's just keep going. So the order was placed, and then the draperies never came. They didn't come, and they didn't come, and they didn't come. And lots of excuses about why they didn't come. But Esther's starting to realize that something is really off. The real reason that they aren't coming is because the money that Esther had given them for the draperies had been applied to another job, and now they were waiting for another job to get the money so that they could apply them to her job. And so Esther realized what the delays were all about. So she adjusted to the delays because there is a momentum now. There's a momentum, and so the path of least resistance felt like just adjusting. It didn't feel right to just pull out altogether. She might lose money. She liked these people. She didn't want to show a distrust for them. So even though she wasn't happy with what was happening, it was far from the receiving mode. It just seemed like that was the easier thing to do. So she kept saying nice things to them and kept encouraging them and telling them that she knew that it would work out all right. And finally, she began getting the date that they were going to bring the drapery. And so she is thinking, well, this is turning out all right. Now, we want to say here that things that don't feel good never turn out right. That's just something that you'd have to know. But when you're trying to be someone else's path of least resistance, when Esther's desire to support this company and to support these people was stronger than her own desire to be in her own state of receiving, so she goes along with it and she keeps encouraging them, and she even asks them if they need more money because she knows that they are sort of in a bind. She's wanting to be a good citizen, you see. And so then the draperies finally arrive. And as they hang them where they need to be hung, they are about 4 inches too long. Well, Esther tried to be a really nice person about that. And she is saying, you know, I'm having some company soon, and I've been telling you about this for 8 months. And now here we are. And so are you going to be able to shorten these draperies in time for me? We'll do everything that we can. And so Esther is talking herself into feeling good about that. Even though she doesn't feel good about it, she's still not ready to bail out of it. She's still the big boulder rolling down the hill, hoping that she doesn't run over someone on the highway. In other words, it's that sort of feeling. And so then the very nice man says, I've found someone locally who can take care of these draperies. And Esther says, that's really a wonderful thing. It's really going to make me so happy to see those up there in time for my party. And so then the very nice man shows up, and now he only has one arm today because he's had an accident, and his arm is in a sling, and he is climbing on the ladder, and he's trying to take the draperies down with one arm. And Esther is thinking, this man is going to die in my house. So he manages to get the draperies down. As he's leaving, Esther says to him, now you realize that these 3 windows are one length, and this window is a different length. And you have marked all of these panels so that you know what's what. Yes, ma'am, I understand. And so off he goes, and he finds someone locally, and she is just going to him. She is going to help him make that deadline. And then Esther receives a telephone call, and she says, hello? And he says, hello. And Esther says, are you all right? And he said, something very bad has happened. And Esther said, what? And he said, the seamstress cut off the wrong panel, and one drapery now is too short for the window. And I was wondering if it would be all right if we just go ahead and hang it anyway. And Esther started to laugh because her whole world came flashing before her eyes. And she realized that right from the beginning, that had been hard. Right from the beginning, there was nothing about that wasn't hard, and she just kept trying to make it work and trying to make it work and trying to make it work. She was trying to make it work because she didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. She was trying to make it work because she wanted them to believe that she believed in them. She was trying to make it work because she had money and time invested and didn't want to start over. In other words, she was trying to make it work, trying to make it work, trying to make it work. When the constant evidence was, this isn't working. This isn't working. This is the question. What makes you unwilling to pull off of what isn't working with a friend, with an employee? We'll tell you what it is. It's your unwillingness to be the selfishly oriented individual that you really are, who wants to be in alignment with your own desires. There are some paths that you are on that are not going to lead you to where you want to be without consternation, which is not on your path, you see. And so what we're getting at here is this receptive mode is starting to take on more importance, isn't it? And the way the receptive mode takes on more importance is by having experiences like you are describing and experiences that Esther's had that we are describing. In other words, it is through that experience that you begin to understand that you can tell when you're in the flow and when the cooperative components are coming to you. And you can feel when you're in the flow with something else and the uncooperative components are coming to you. Now, how did Esther's expectation get there? Well, there must have been something there that she didn't clean up right from the beginning, or that wouldn't have been there. And so that's why the worse it gets, the worse it gets, the worse it gets, the worse it gets, or the better it gets, the better it gets, the better it gets, the better it gets. That's why you want to start it the way you want it to end up. You want to get in tune with who you really are. And anything else, you just want to turn your attention from it, turn your attention from it, turn your attention from it. Esther could have saved herself months of consternation and ended up at the same place. In other words, she could have said months ago, just never mind about this, just never mind. It's like asking someone who is incapable of doing something to do it and then feeling bad because the person who you've asked to do it, who is incapable of doing it, can't do it. When there is a whole world of those who are capable of doing it out there that you have access to, just not now, while you're focused on the ones who are incapable of doing it. You see what we're getting at? Esther takes full responsibility for all of this. She felt every subtle and not so subtle part of this. She knows the part that she played in all of this. She was giving lip service to it. She was being very nice to them. She was sounding as cheerful as she could. She was trying to cheer them up. She even was wanting to support them financially. But she never got in the receptive mode about it, because the fact of the matter was she had expectations right from the get-go of how this was going to go, and it never changed. Her expectation never changed. So the question is, could she have gotten in the receptive mode, and could her expectation have changed? And if her expectation had changed, would different people have come into the mix? Yes. But she didn't do that. Her expectation followed what she was observing, even with all that she knows. But it won't happen like that again. The drapes seemed like the subject, but these were interpersonal relationships. There were several people involved. She fell in love with all of these people. In other words, she cares about these people and this company, this dysfunctional company. She cares about them. These are relationships that she formed. If she didn't care about those people, she would have said, go away months ago. She would have said, this isn't working months ago. It's because she cared about them, because she wanted to be their path of least resistance, because she was more aware of that than her own alignment, you see. Life really is not about more important things than drapes. It isn't. It's just another set of drapes and another set of drapes and another set of drapes and another set of drapes. That's all it is. That's all life is. Life just makes you want drapes. Esther could justify till the cows come home. She can justify. There's no way that she's ever going to make them understand that drapes matter. But the drapes don't matter. Alignment matters. Creation matters. Co-creation matters. Being in the flow matters. This isn't about the drapes. None of this is about the drapes. The drapes are just the excuse to understand what the receptive mode is. And the receptive mode is divine. And not being in the receptive mode sucks. You see, Esther didn't come out of this with a desire that she's going to find a fantastic drapery company. That's not what she came out of it with. Because this company had the potential of giving her what she wanted, just not under those vibrational conditions. But Esther didn't come out of this scenario with a new decision about drapes. Esther came out of this scenario about a new decision about alignment. Esther came out of this scenario understanding nothing matters more than or other than alignment. And so Esther is now willing, in a way that she never was before, to bail out of unpleasant momentum by withdrawing her attention from it, by just pulling back, by just turning the other cheek, by giving her attention to things that do harmonize with alignment, rather than with trying to fix things that don't. And this is a really wonderful conversation to have with humans, because most of your life energies or actions are spent in trying to compensate with action for vibration that you didn't align to begin with. Almost everything that you do is action to try to fix alignment that didn't happen to begin with. The tricky thing is, if you could just go to sleep for a year and let all those vibrations just peter out, and then you could wake up in alignment and start fresh, that would be an easier way of going about it. It's sort of what you do when you're born each time. You come in with no resistance and you develop your new desires. But you can do this. You can do this if you care about how you feel. We really don't want to spend too much time justifying where you are, but understanding how it all fits together can help. Looking back is not as valuable as looking forward. And as you stand in your now and look forward rather than back, in other words, turning away from something is the same thing as turning towards something else. And that's how Esther brought herself out of that. She stood in her space and she acknowledged everything that had gone so well. And she felt, why is it that I want to fixate on the things that aren't going well? And we say, it's because you're creators and you're accomplishers and you're productive and you take pleasure in being the productive beings that you are. In other words, all of those things matter to you. But this conversation is just about getting your priorities straight. And feeling good's just got to be your highest priority. And this conversation, we've never had a conversation quite like this before. We've never had a conversation where we're talking about momentum of both wanted thoughts and unwanted thoughts. In other words, momentum is momentum. The law of attraction causes momentum to happen no matter what thought that you're thinking about. Most all of you have picked up along your physical trail quite a bit of wanting to justify, quite a bit of wanting to explain why you are where you are. And that's the thing that trips you up most of all. You are where you are, and you want to either defend where you are or justify where you are or rationalize where you are, because where you are feels important to you, especially in relationship to an expectation of something different that is really strong. You're helping us to say something that we've never said before. Think about this vortex and think about your inner being there. And let's call that expectation. What about that? Expectation, because your inner being knows what you want and feels no doubt about it. And so that is perfect expectation. So expectation does not diminish joy. Expectation is joy. Being off of it vibrationally diminishes your joy. In other words, you cannot focus in opposition to who you are and all that you've become and feel good at the same time. We would call that a diminishment of joy. You cannot focus in opposition to who you really are and what the source within you knows you to be. Observation of what is what often keeps you from being a vibrational match to what you're really wanting. New things happening here today. Have you felt them already? new clarifying things that now you know them will serve you, will serve all of us.